Superman first debuted in 1938, but if you've never read any of his comics, then these are 15 of the best for beginners. Woof woof! Hey guys, it's me Marcus, aka the Mad Dog, and we're back with another video. I'm dressed for the part this time because we're doing a where to start on Superman. Starting it off, I've got John Byrne's Man of Steel. This was the first Superman comic that I ever read because of the fact that it was in my school library. I think I read this cover to cover a good couple of times because I was that kid who volunteered to be a librarian during my dinners just because of the fact that I didn't want to get beat up. Yep, the sob stories are coming out early in this video. But after Crisis on Infinite Earths, DC Comics knew that they needed to bring in new readers. That's why we had stuff like Batman Year One, Wonder Woman by George Perez, and for Superman, they hired none other than John Byrne. It's a retelling of his origins for a modern day audience, and even though it originally came out in the 80s, I think this is still very accessible for somebody who wants to pick it up today. They are bringing it out in these hardcovers, but admittedly, I think the only main part of this series that you really need to read, the part that I'm mainly recommending, is the first 6 issues of the miniseries. And then yes, it does branch into the main continuity, so whether you're somebody who wants a shorter Superman story, or maybe something a bit longer, I think you can get both from this series. Next up, and it's sitting right here because I've got Superman Batman. This is the first Superman book that I chose to read, and it's because of the fact that I really loved Batman. And you might be that person as well. It might be the fact that the Dark Knight is the one character that you've read from DC Comics. Then why not make it a little bit easier for yourself and read this series because of the fact that you've got a combination of these two. As well, Superman is one of those characters that works best when he's around other heroes. So having somebody who's got that dark persona like Batman really works well against somebody like Superman. In particular, I am talking about the first 20 or so issues that were done by Jeff Loeb because I think that's where the series really hits its stride. But I've heard that the rest of the series is still decent and it's just good fun. That's what comics needs to do. It needs to entertain you first and foremost, and I think if you're just looking for something to help you understand the character, then why not go for a title like this? And as well as just learning about Superman, you will also learn about the people that surround him and also a lot of his villains. As well, this omnibus is getting a volume 2 and you can already pre-order it over at our sponsor Organic Price Books. I can personally recommend them. They've got great packaging, amazing shipping, and if you use code WOOF, you'll get $2 off your order. And you can use that as many times as you want, so feel free to buy volume 1 today and maybe pre-order volume 2 a little bit later, and you can use the same code. But the next book that I'm going to recommend is Superman Last Son of Krypton. This recommendation is for people who have maybe watched the Superman movies, maybe you grew up with Christopher Reeve, and now you're looking to branch into the comics. Honestly, there is no recommendation that's going to be better for you than this, and it was written by Richard Donner, who directed the first movie and part of the second one. But it's also written by Geoff Johns, who admittedly, I feel like I need to have a drink now that I've said his name. And he is also one of the best writers who can bring in new readers but also not hold your hand whilst he's doing it. Last Son of Krypton's just really enjoyable overall, and I think anybody that's looking to get into comics from the movies is going to have a good time with this. After that, I can't make this list without recommending to you All-Star Superman. Grant Morrison crafted one of the best Superman stories of all time, and it's still enjoyable even though the hype's died down a bit for it. This is a 12-issue standalone Superman story that just wants to tell you about why the character's great. If you're somebody who's got this perception that Superman is boring or he's just too overpowered to ever really have a challenge, this is the book that you need to read. I think everybody should give this a go at some point. I don't think this is for everybody, but if you know nothing about the character, then I think it's worth giving it a go. Grant Morrison, even though they're often known for having really convoluted storylines, he just boils it down to the basics. Instead of the 12 labors of Hercules, you've got the 12 labors of Superman, and you get to see the way that other people look at Superman, and I also think it's just worth getting it because of the fact that Frank Whiteley made it his point to make a distinction when he was drawing Clark Kent and when he was drawing Superman. So even though it isn't going to help you to pick up the most recent issue with Superman, it's still worth getting this because of the fact that it's just going to tell you everything that you need to know about the character. Another one, I've got Superman Batman Trinity. This is the 3-issue miniseries that was done by Matt Wagner and not the 52 weekly issues. I feel like that's a little bit too much of a commitment to ask of you, but in a similar way to when I was recommending Superman Batman, you might have been tempted to pick that up, but you don't really have to get one of these whammy omnibuses. Don't worry, I used to be like that, and then everything changed and now I just need them all the time. But this is a really nice short story that is going to help you learn a lot about DC's 3 biggest heroes. I don't really think it's groundbreaking, I don't think it's something that's really going to end up in your list of the best books of all time, but for something that's just light-hearted and fun and introduces you into all 3 of these characters if it is that you don't know anything about any of them, then it definitely has to get a place on this list. And I also think it's got a really nice art style that reminds me a little bit of Darwin Cook, but either way, for something something that's short and sweet, this is definitely going to get a recommendation. Next up, and where to start is never limited to just comics, because I've got Superman the Animated Series. I absolutely loved this series when I was growing up, and I really hope that they do release a Blu-ray set of it. And I feel like it's a bit of a shame because of the fact that Batman the Animated Series is so acclaimed that people often forget about the one for Superman. It's still set in that Bruce Timm universe, and it might be the case that you've already watched some of the Justice League series. But I think between the movies and comics, the animated series are sometimes the best bridge for people to get into either, because you've got some of that similar art style and they often are quite loyal to the source material, but you can also figure out what storylines you like and then research which comics are most likely to be like that. So for somebody who has no knowledge of Superman, I really think that this would be good for you if it is that maybe you prefer TV over books. Although admittedly, if that is you, I don't think there's many other videos on this channel that might be for you, but you know, do your boy a favour and still click on them. Next up, and this is one for people who just want to dip the toe into the Superman related universe, because I've got Super Family books. So you've got Super Sons, you've also got Supergirl, the one by Peter David I have always heard recommended, but it hasn't really been collected a lot, so I haven't had a chance to read it. And if you like more of your Golden, Bronze and Silver Age type of storytellings, you had series that were based around Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen. So if it is that maybe you don't want to read Superman just yet, but you want to learn a lot about the world that he's in, then there's other titles that you can explore. It's like with Batman, I'm always going to recommend Bat Family books so that you can get that wider exposure. And a lot of time there is still overlap because Superman is the most important character in any Super Family book. And there's also going to be more of his rogues galleries, like it always seems like Mr. Mixel-Pitalik is just appearing everywhere. So if it is that maybe you don't want to just jump into Superman, then definitely look at some of these other options. But before I recommend this next one, I do have to remind you that where to start isn't about recommending the best Superman stories that have ever existed, it's about the best starting points for new readers, in which case I do have to recommend Grant Morrison's Action Comics. This was part of the New 52, and yes, of course, it's my jam, and I know a lot of people don't like this run because it wasn't really the Superman that they were used to. It is trying to show a bit of respect to the golden age of comics when this character first debuted. So even though I think it's very niche and it won't be for many people, there are still going to be some people that will appreciate this story. And the New 52, like what I was saying about the Man of Steel run, was a time when they were trying to bring new readers into these comics. So even though it isn't going to bring you into the main continuity, it's still at least going to tell you a Superman story. And it might be one for you if you don't want something that's following the same trend as all the other Superman books that have come before it. Sometimes something different and obscure works for other people, and if you're that type of person, then this is one that I feel like you have to at least look into. But trust me, if you say that you like this book, there are going to be people that will jump down your throat, so just be prepared for that. Now, we're talking about the first Superman run that I followed in single issues because I've got the new Krypton event. I remember getting all of these issues. It stretched across so many different titles, and I really enjoyed this. I was still a new reader when I was buying this, so I think it's also going to be accessible for other people today. Although admittedly, I'm saying accessible, but it does seem like DC's forgotten about this part of the Man of Steel's history. You might have to hunt down quite a few trade paperbacks and things like that, but I do think they'd be worth it. If you've got something like DC Universe and you can just access it digitally for free, I definitely recommend looking into this one. But this is one of those Superman stories that works because of the fact that he isn't really entirely set on Earth. It is more about the political side of Krypton and if Kryptonians are actually good people and what it would be like if Krypton still existed today, and there's also quite a lot of characters that are spawned out of this. So yes, it does require you to know a little bit about the Superman mythology, but either way, I think this is great if you are looking for something that's in main continuity and that's spanned for quite a long amount of time. But if I'm recommending books where Superman's working as part of a bigger team, how can I not recommend JLA by Grant Morrison? I said it earlier, but Superman often works best when he's around other people. In this, he is the leader of the Justice League. He's the person that they all look towards. He's also Blue Superman at one point, which, you know, still pretty cool. But again, you've got big intergalactic threats, and this was a series that was written so that new readers could jump into it. There's a brief introduction into every character, including Superman, so if it is that you don't know anything about him, but maybe you know more about other members of the Justice League, this is the perfect starting point for you. Because of the fact that it also has to juggle all that other continuity, you're going to learn more about the history of Superman as a result of reading this title. But at the same time, it never really weighs the story down, it just carries it on its back and keeps moving moving forward. So even though this may seem a bit daunting to a new reader, it's very accessible and I'd recommend that you check it out. Now, this is one of the most recent runs that I'm going to recommend, but it's Superman by Peter J. Tomasi and Patrick Gleason. This is the Rebirth era DC Comics, so if you're looking for something a bit more contemporary, this is the one that's going to get the recommendation from me. But having already done a run on Batman and Robin, which I reviewed a few months ago, this creative team then decided to take a run on Superman. But this isn't your standard Superman story because he's now got a child, and that factors into the majority of this story. So if you're looking for a good father-son dynamic with a Superman that's got even more maturity than what we're normally used to seeing, with just a creative team that really enjoys the stories that they're telling and always makes sure that the reader has a good time, then this has to be the book for you. And I know that Organic Price Books does have this in stock, so again, I'd recommend checking them out and using that discount code that we spoke about. But even though it's quite recent, I still feel like I can already say that this is one of those timeless stories that's always going to be enjoyable to new people. We're coming into my last couple of picks now, and of course I have to recommend Superman's Secret Origin. Again, Geoff Johns, so you know this is going to be great for new readers. But if when I was describing Man of Steel in the first pick, you thought that maybe comics from the 80s are a little bit outdated for you, then this is the one that you need to buy. This does pretty much a similar job but in a different way because it's looking at the origin story and how Clark Kent became the Man of Steel. It's only 6 issues long and you've got beautiful art from Gary Frank, and he also designed his Superman so that he looked like Christopher Reeve. But you get to see stuff like the first meeting between Superman and Lex Luthor. There's also a good amount of stuff that's done with the Legion of Superheroes, and you get to see Superman when he was first trying out his powers, and I just think that this is a great story. I think as well, I read this in one sitting. It's really enjoyable. It's got a great amount of heart to it, and I think it's something that every new reader can enjoy. Now my next pick's a little bit of a cheat because I've got this on my shelf but I haven't read it just yet, but I've had so many people recommend it to me. I trust this creative team, so it has to get a mention on the list because I feel like if I later read it, I'd wish that I'd put it on anyway. So to future Marcus, you're welcome for this one because I've got Superman for All Seasons. Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale, the creative team that brought you Batman The Long Halloween, which was the first book that I ever reviewed on this channel, told a 4-issue story that set out a continuity but has all the heart and passion that every Superman story should have. From what I'm told, it really captures the essence of the character. So similar to what I said about All-Star Superman, if you've got these misconceptions about him that you think he's a boring character, or you don't really know what he stands for besides the obvious truth, justice, and the American way, then this sounds like one of those books that's just trying to change your perspective on how you look at this character. It's really close to the top of my to read list, so it's going to get a review soon, so make sure that you're looking out for that one as well. But with how many people have told me to read this book, it has to get a spot on this list. But in a similar way, my last pick is pretty much every Superman story that I know other people are going to recommend but I haven't read yet. And that's why I wanted to do this Where to Start series, because there's so many jumping on points that I haven't even read them all. Stuff like Superman's Secret Identity by Kurt Busiek, Superman American Alien, even stuff like Luthor, which was done by Brian Azzarello and Lee Bermejo, who also did Joker. It even seems like books like Superman Unchained by Scott Snyder and Jim Lee are great for new readers as well. And that's the joy of comics. It's about finding and discovering these runs that you really enjoy. And whatever starting point is going to help you get into Superman and comics in general is what should be on this list. So even if I haven't necessarily read it, there's probably others that you might really enjoy. Because Superman is a great character and there's a reason why we still know who he is, even 80 years after his debut. So that's my list, and I'd like to know in the comments below what the first Superman story was that you ever read. I'm going to keep doing these Where to Starts. I know people have been asking for Thor and Spider-Man. Don't worry, they are coming. It's just these videos take a bit of time. So definitely make sure that you subscribed or check out the playlist for the rest of the series. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you didn't, why did you get this far? And check out our sponsor Organic Price Books and share this video where you can because it really helps the channel. But until next time, whenever that may be, just make sure that you stay safe, stay reading the best books that you can find, and stay mad all you dogs. Woof woof! See you at the next video.